The proclamation of the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him, and the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man," and then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers, or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they may invite you back and you have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord.
Our Gospel passage for this Sunday comes from the Gospel of St. Luke. We are reflecting on the theme of choosing humility. Choosing humility. We have to decide to be humble. It will not come to us by chance. In the first reading from the book of Sirach, we see that humility is a human virtue, involving a lot of human choices, like being honest with myself, not ambitioning things that are beyond my capacities, knowing my limits. And for the book of Sirach, the greater a person is, the more humble he or she should be. For humility is a true sign of greatness. And to cap it all, humility is pleasing to God's eyes. A humble person is not only attractive to other human beings, humility catches the eye of God, and God gives favors to a humble person. In the second reading, through the use of images, we find in the letter to the Hebrews this contrast between how the people Israel experienced the presence of the mighty God in the revelation of the commandments. It was an intimidating presence. But then in the new covenant, we have the focus on Jesus, the humble one, the servant, the crucified one, the lowly Lamb of God, now hosting a friendly banquet between human beings, the holy ones, and the angels. And this is centered on the one who became a human being like us, so that we could be part of the banquet in heaven. As though the gates of heaven were opened to us, thanks to the humble Jesus. In the Gospel, Jesus is presented as a guest in a dinner. And Jesus notices how some of the guests were looking for the best seats, or the seats of honor in the table. This becomes an occasion for Jesus to give a parable. In fact, two parts, all leading us to valuable lessons about humility and purity of intentions when we deal with other people. The first part of the parable goes this way. I guess we're all familiar with it. When you are invited to a wedding banquet, do not choose for yourself the seat of honor. Okay, do not choose the seat of honor, for that reveals your self-image. You probably are thinking of all the guests here, of the 250 guests here, I am the most important. And because I think of myself that way, I automatically choose the best seat, telling myself, you deserve it. It is for you, because believe me, you are the most honorable guest here. Now, Jesus says, don't do that, for you might be put in an embarrassing situation. A guest more honorable than you might come, and the host will tell you, sir, ma'am, will you please stand up and go to a lower seat, because this one is reserved for my guest of honor. Now, how embarrassing it is for you. But I guess this is also common sense. If someone is in his or her right sense, you would not appoint yourself as the guest of honor. But I guess also, some people think of themselves that way, and they demand that they be treated as guests of honor. But Jesus is telling us, do not choose to be that. Do not even think of yourself as that. Wait for the host to bring you up in a way to exalt you to a higher position. What should we choose? We should choose the lowest seat. And the honor is a gift to us coming from the host. This is an important lesson, my dear brothers and sisters. Choose the lowest seat, and the honor is not for us to seek. It is a gift. It will be given to us by the host. And in this case, it will be given to us by God. Don't seek honor. Seek humility. And God will do the rest if we deserve honor. Now, the second part of the parable is about, again, a meal. So it's not just us being guests in the meal, but this time, how about if you are the host of the meal? Whom will you invite? Now, Jesus tells us something that is very normal. We usually invite family, friends, benefactors. In other words, we invite those who belong to our group, who belong to our class. But by choosing these people, unconsciously, we are also eliminating other people. Those whom probably we will not admit verbally, but de facto, these are people whom we have excluded from our inner group. And Jesus tells us in this reading, instead of inviting our relatives, our friends, and the rich, why not invite the poor, the lame, the crippled? And what is the motivation? Not just charity. Not just because these are the people who probably need more food. Our friends, our relatives, and the rich ones, maybe they're already trying to avoid food. But not only for charity. Jesus says, you invite these people because they will not be able to repay you. Whereas those who have means will surely think of inviting you to their place. That happens, huh? When you have guests who are rather well off, when the dinner is over, they will already reciprocate your kindness, they'll say, oh, next time, it will be in my house. They will invite you in turn. But Jesus says here, whereas the poor won't be able to reciprocate. But again, some of us will say, but that's normal. How can they reciprocate? Here is the clincher. Jesus ends the parable by saying, you should be pleased that they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid in the resurrection of the just. Again, the purification of motivation. I may be doing good to neighbors externally, but am I expecting recognition? Am I expecting a reward? Again, lack of humility. And Jesus is saying, leave it up to God to reward you. So, leave it up to God to extol you, to give you honor. And for all your good deeds, leave it to God to reward you and repay you. So we are being told to be pure in heart, to be humble and joyful in all our activities and in all of our caritative actions. Jesus knows that as human beings, we deserve honor, but it can be a trap towards pride. Jesus knows that as human beings, we can be affirmed by people who recognize our good works and who reciprocate our goodness. But again, it could be a trap. I could be doing good works simply for the desire for recognition and repayment. Jesus is saving us by telling us, be humble. And if you do good things, do them with disinterestedness. You are disinterested in any recognition or in any adulation. You know, I had an experience of this when I was a new worker in the Vatican. You know, I was, of course, quite timid. And in one meeting that I attended, the first session was, you just introduce yourselves, no? And I was in the company of people who were known and whose places were known, big cities, big centers of learning, etc. When it came to me, I said, I'm Professor Tagle from Imus. And all of them looked at me and said, where is that? Never heard. I said, oh, it's a place in the Philippines. It's near Manila, all of those, no? Then you just keep your profile low. You do what you can. I knew my capacities. When they asked me to do things that I knew I could not do well, I just plainly told them, oh no, that's beyond me, etc. No? And then I became a bishop. And in one meeting, no, with other bishops, the facilitator, a cardinal, looked at me, and before I could introduce myself, the cardinal asked me, oh, Bishop, how is Imus? All of a sudden, people knew about it without me having to blow the trumpet. I come from this place, I come from this place. You just wait. Do your share humbly, quietly, and well. And before you know it, people see you in your littleness. But it is not of your making. It will be given to you by God when you need it and when He sees fit. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.